Let me tell you a secret about the people who smile to your face, but constantly make you feel small. They are not smarter than you. They are not stronger than you. They simply know how to play the game you refuse to admit exists. Picture this. You are sitting in a conference room, or perhaps at a dinner table with people you consider friends. Someone drops a passive-aggressive comment, a subtle insult, wrapped neatly inside a joke. The room goes quiet for a fraction of a second. You feel it instantly. That hot rush of blood to your chest, the tightening in your jaw. Your immediate, burning instinct is to defend yourself. You want to explain, to correct the record, to hit back with the facts and show them they are wrong. You have been taught your whole life that this means you are standing up for yourself. You think you are being real, but the uncomfortable truth is, in that exact moment, you're just handing them the remote control to your nervous system. People do not provoke you because they want to win an argument. They do not care about being right. They poke you for one reason and one reason only: to map your pressure points. Every manipulator, every office politician, and every toxic partner is secretly a student of human behavior. They are constantly studying your baseline. They want to know what it takes to make you stumble, what makes you insecure, what makes you raise your voice. When you react emotionally, you're giving away the exact coordinates of your vulnerabilities. You're handing them a detailed blueprint that says, "Here is where you press to make me break." You think your anger proves you are strong, but to a strategist, your anger is a submission of power. It proves you can be moved. If you want to hold power in this world, you must internalize a brutal truth. They cannot conquer a mind they cannot read. This means you must stop giving people free data. The next time someone drops a veiled insult or tries to drag you into their chaotic emotional theater, you do not fire back. You do not laugh nervously to break the tension. You do not launch into a passionate, breathless defense of your character. You do absolutely nothing. You look at them with a face entirely empty of emotion. You hold eye contact, just a second longer than is normal. No twitch in your jaw, no sudden shift in your posture, no change in the rhythm of your breathing. You project an absolute, chilling neutrality. When you react with complete stillness, the trap they set for you instantly snaps shut on their own fingers. They threw a hook, expecting you to thrash and bleed. But instead, the line went dead. The tension they tried to place on you rebounds entirely onto them. In the sudden vacuum of your non-reaction, they are left hanging in the air, exposed and awkward. They start to sweat. They start wondering if they went too far. They wonder if you know something they do not. By doing nothing, you transform from a predictable, easily manipulated target into a void that absorbs their strategy and returns nothing. You are no longer playing their game. You have forced them to play yours. You have been conditioned to believe that transparency is always a virtue. Society tells you that wearing your heart on your sleeve makes you an authentic, good person. But in the cold reality of power dynamics, unregulated emotion is not authenticity. It is a liability. It is an open door that invites predators to walk right in and take a seat in your mind. When you learn to detach from the immediate sting of disrespect and master the art of the blank slate, you become terrifying to people who rely on manipulation. You sever the strings they are trying to pull, but simply swallowing your anger is only the first lock on the door. To truly become untouchable, you must learn to starve them of the one thing they crave most. Starving them of what they crave most means starving them of your words. When you master your emotional reactions, you cut off their oxygen. But when you weaponize silence, you force them to suffocate on their own anxiety. Most people walk through life deeply terrified of silence. They have been conditioned to view empty air in a conversation as a failure, a social glitch that must be frantically repaired. Because of this, they talk constantly, they babble, they justify. They fill every quiet gap with meaningless noise, hoping it makes them appear friendly, cooperative, and normal. But in the realm of power dynamics, words are a massive liability. Every sentence you utter without a specific purpose is another crack in your armor. Imagine a scenario you have likely lived through a dozen times. You are locked in a tense conversation. Maybe a manager trying to pin a mistake on you, or a partner trying to twist your words to make you the villain. They launch their accusation and wait for you to panic. They expect you to immediately launch into a desperate, breathless defense, throwing out excuses, context, and apologies to clear your name. Instead, you simply look at them. You do not nod. You do not shake your head. You just let the silence sit there, heavy and unresolved. 1 second, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. To the average person, this 5-second gap feels like a suffocating eternity. Watch closely what happens to them in that void. The human brain cannot tolerate a social vacuum. Because you are giving them absolutely nothing to work with, they are forced to project their own insecurities into the silence. The person who is trying to dominate you will suddenly feel an unbearable psychological pressure to fill the gap. They will start talking. They will backtrack on their initial insult. They will over-explain their position. They will negotiate against themselves before you have even stated your terms. In their desperate attempt to relieve the awkwardness of the room, they will spill their hidden motives. They will hand you the truth they were trying to hide, simply because they lacked the discipline to stay quiet. You must realize that over-explaining is the ultimate signal of weakness. When you talk too much, you are subconsciously signaling that you need to be understood, that you require their validation to feel secure in your own reality. You put yourself on the witness stand and act as your own frantic defense attorney, practically begging the jury for mercy. But a person of true power never begs to be understood. They know that whoever speaks the least in a negotiation, an argument, or a relationship inherently holds the highest ground. Speaking less than necessary is an act of asymmetric psychological warfare. You are purposely withholding the data they desperately need to categorize you. You become a black box. If they ask a loaded question designed to trap you and you respond with a calm, flat, 3-word answer, you destroy their entire strategy. You give them nothing to grab onto, no loose threads to pull. They realize very quickly that they are completely outmatched. They cannot conquer a mind. They cannot read. From this moment forward, you must stop treating conversation like a polite, mandatory game of tennis. You do not owe anyone a return volley just because they swung a racket. Your words are expensive. Your attention is a privilege. Stop giving them away to people who use them, to build traps. When you flip this switch in your mind, silence stops feeling like an awkward moment you need to survive. It transforms into a razor-sharp blade. You can sit comfortably in the quiet, watching them squirm, empowered by the cold realization that you are entirely in control of the pace of reality. Yet, silence is only a weapon when you are physically in the room. True power requires knowing exactly when to remove your presence altogether. Silence is a devastating tool when you are physically in the room, but true power requires knowing exactly when to remove your presence altogether. There comes a defining moment in every toxic dynamic where your worth is suddenly placed on trial. Picture a romantic relationship where a partner casually diminishes your contributions, or a workplace environment where a manager constantly moves the goalposts. demanding that you repeatedly justify your position and your value. The standard human response is to dig your heels in. You stay in the room, you lay out your logic, you list your past sacrifices, and you explain your intentions, treating the interaction like a high-stakes courtroom where you are desperately fighting for a favorable verdict. You believe that if you just find the right combination of words, they will finally see your worth and give you the respect you deserve. Here is a cold reframe that is going to sting. You are not a victim of chronic misunderstanding, nor are you simply dealing with bad luck. The disrespect you endure is a direct result of the signals you broadcast and the incentives you create by refusing to leave. Every single time you stay in a hostile environment to argue for your basic dignity, you are actively communicating that your worth is up for debate. You are signaling that you need their final stamp of approval to feel whole. You teach them that no matter how low they drop the bar, you will always stoop down to crawl underneath it. They do not respect you, because your lingering proves that you do not even respect yourself. Manipulators rely heavily on your obsession with closure. Modern society has convinced you that every conflict must end with a neat, mutual understanding, an apology, or a final definitive conversation. Toxic individuals weaponize this desire against you. They intentionally withhold validation and resolution, knowing that as long as you are chasing closure, you're trapped in their web. They keep the loop open so you keep coming back, spinning your wheels, feeding their ego with your frustration, your anger, and your desperate attempts to fix things. Now visualize what happens when you short-circuit that entire system. They throw out a disrespectful comment, expecting the usual hour-long defensive argument. But this time, you do not engage. You do not demand an apology. You do not deliver a dramatic, theatrical monologue about how badly they have treated you. You simply stand up, gather your things, and walk out the door. The absolute finality of a silent exit is a psychological shockwave. It is a behavior that terrifies people, because it is the one move they cannot manipulate, predict, or counter. By withdrawing your presence without a single word of explanation, you instantly destroy their leverage. They were prepared for a fight, ready to feed on your emotional desperation. And suddenly, they are left talking to an empty chair. The panic sets in immediately. Without you there to absorb their toxicity, they are forced to sit alone with the suffocating weight of their own behavior. They realize, in a terrifying flash of clarity, that their control over you was an absolute illusion. They cannot conquer a mind they cannot read, and they certainly cannot manipulate a person who is no longer in the room. Shh. You must stop negotiating with disrespect. When someone shows you exactly who they are and how little they value you, that is not an invitation to become their teacher. It is your immediate cue to disappear. Walking away without demanding closure is the ultimate display of lethal self-reliance. It telegraphs to the world that your boundaries are not up for discussion, and that your presence is a high-tier privilege that can and will be permanently revoked at a moment's notice. Walking away proves you do not need them, but there is a different kind of trial you must face. When you are forced to stay in the room and the walls start closing in. This unbreakable composure protects you from external chaos, but it means absolutely nothing if you are still secretly a slave to internal validation. Imagine a high-stakes meeting or a public confrontation where the air is suddenly thick with tension. A sudden crisis hits, accusations are hurled across the room, and every single eye snaps immediately to you. They are waiting to see if you will break. They want to witness the exact moment your hands start to tremble, your breath hitches, and your confident facade collapses into sheer panic. Most people fold under this kind of direct pressure. Their entire identity is anchored to how others perceive them in the moment. So when the social spotlight turns into a blowtorch, they disintegrate. They abandon their strategy, abandon their boundaries, and scramble desperately to save face. You, however, must operate entirely outside of that fragile framework. When the room goes quiet and the staring eyes burn into your skin, you do not shift your posture by even a millimeter. Your breathing remains slow, deliberate, and entirely unbothered. You do not rush to fill the silence with nervous justifications or defensive stammering. Instead, you freeze the environment around you simply by refusing to match its panic. This kind of stillness under fire is completely unnatural to ordinary people, which is precisely why it makes them deeply uncomfortable. They cannot process why you are not falling apart, the way they certainly would. Your terrifying calm acts as an uncompromising mirror, forcing everyone around you to look directly at their own emotional instability and lack of discipline. You must understand that pressure is an absolute illusion, manufactured by the expectations of others. When someone tries to corner you, intimidate you, or back you into a tactical disadvantage, they are banking on the fact that your internal state will mirror the urgency of the moment. They are projecting their own internal chaos onto your reality. The moment you meet their frantic energy with a cold, unyielding neutrality, you shatter their entire paradigm. They realize that you are not playing the game of emotional survival. You are no longer reacting to life. You are calmly observing it, weighing your options, and calculating your next move with surgical precision. The person who stays entirely composed while everyone else is losing their minds instantly claims the throne of the room without having to raise their voice or issue a single threat. Think about the most dangerous, effective players in history. They were never the loudest voices in the chamber. They were the cold, calculating figures sitting quietly in the corner, absorbing every data point, unbothered by the noise, waiting for the exact right second to strike. When you master your internal state under fire, you stop being a target and become an impenetrable fortress. They cannot intimidate a man who looks at a crisis and sees nothing more than a tactical opportunity to observe their weaknesses. This level of absolute composure completely changes the power dynamics of every single room you step into. People stop trying to test you because they subconsciously recognize that your baseline is entirely out of their reach. They learn that attempting to rattle you is a waste of time. That only ends up exposing their own fragility. You become the unshakable anchor in a world full of drifting ships, and nothing commands more silent, reluctant respect than a mind that cannot be shaken by turbulence. Yet, this unbreakable composure protects you from external chaos, but it means absolutely nothing if you are still secretly looking around the room to see who is clapping for you. That unbreakable composure protects you from the chaos of the outside world, but it means absolutely nothing if you are still secretly looking around the room to see who is clapping for you. The most dangerous weakness a human being can possess is the desperate need to be liked. It is a leash you willingly clip around your own neck before handing the other end to society. As long as your self-worth is tied to the validation of others, you will always be a pawn in their game. You will constantly shapeshift to avoid their judgment, dimming your light and compromising your reality, just to keep the peace. But when you genuinely stop requiring their applause, you become immune to their rejection. Picture this scenario. You make a significant decision about your life, your career, or your boundaries. You share it, and someone across the table raises a skeptical eyebrow. They offer a condescending smile or a thinly veiled critique. A tiny social test designed to make you second-guess yourself and seek their reassurance. A A weaker version of you would immediately start backpedaling. You would soften the edges of your ambition, over-explain your reasoning, and desperately try to win back their approval. But this time, you do something that deeply unsettles them. You simply look back at them with a deadpan, unbothered expression. You offer no defense. You offer no justification. You remain entirely indifferent to their verdict. In that brief, quiet moment, a profound shift in power occurs. When you stop requiring the crowd's approval, you strip the world of its ultimate weapon, the threat of social exile. Manipulators and toxic individuals rely on your fear of standing alone. They know that as long as you crave their validation, they can control your behavior by simply withholding it. They use approval like a currency, paying you in breadcrumbs to keep you compliant and starved. But the second you realize you can mint your own currency, their entire monopoly collapses. An independent mind that does not care about being liked cannot be bribed, coerced, or shamed into submission. Moving through the world with a lethal absence of need is an intoxicating, magnetic state of being. People are naturally intimidated by individuals who do not need them to survive. When your energy broadcasts absolute self-sufficiency, it makes the people around you deeply uncomfortable at first. It forces them to confront their own desperate, exhausting attempts to fit in. They will try to label you as arrogant, cold, or aloof, but that is simply the language the weak use to describe a strength they cannot control. Deep down, they are terrified of your freedom. They recognize that you are a wild card, a player entirely immune to social leverage. Consider how much energy you have wasted over the years, analyzing the tone of someone else's text message, wondering if you offended them, or lying awake replaying a conversation where you felt foolish. That is the heavy tax you pay for outsourcing your self-esteem. When you finally cancel that subscription, all of that mental energy returns to you. You become a massive, centralized force. You no longer walk into a room wondering if the people inside will accept you. You walk in wondering if you even tolerate them. This is the liberation you have been searching for. Beneath all the hollow advice to simply be yourself, it is the ruthless clarity that comes from shedding the suffocating armor of people-pleasing. You realize that you never actually needed their permission to exist on your own terms. Your life is no longer a performance, meant to satisfy an audience that would eagerly replace you tomorrow. Once you strip away the need for their applause, you must step into your final form and ruthlessly dictate exactly how they are allowed to treat you. Once you strip away the need for their applause, you must step into your final form and ruthlessly dictate exactly how they are allowed to treat you. Picture the exact moment someone decides to test your limits. You are at a social gathering or a routine workplace meeting, and an associate tosses out a comment that crosses the line. It is a joke that goes just a fraction too far, a thinly veiled insult designed to probe your perimeter for weakness and see what you will tolerate. Most people, terrified of causing a scene or appearing difficult, will offer a polite, nervous laugh. They swallow the disrespect to maintain the illusion of social harmony. But when you do this, you are actively telling the predator that your defenses are broken and they are free to hunt in your territory whenever they please. This time, you do not laugh. You deploy the velvet guillotine. You stop whatever you're doing, look directly into their eyes, and let your face go entirely blank. Your voice is cold, flat, and quiet as you deliver a single, uncompromising statement, telling them never to speak to you like that again. You do not raise your voice. You do not explain why the joke was offensive. You do not wait for them to apologize or justify their behavior. The room instantly stops dead. The silence that follows becomes heavier than lead. In that single, unblinking moment, You have completely rewritten the rules of engagement. You did not negotiate for their respect. You mandated it. Manipulators expect you to either shrink in embarrassment or explode in anger. They know how to handle both of those reactions. What terrifies them is a boundary enforced without a single drop of emotional leakage. You must realize that boundaries are not requests. They are not ongoing negotiations or lengthy discussions about your feelings. They are absolute limits, enforced with immediate consequences. When you soften your boundaries to spare someone else's feelings, you are betraying yourself to protect the very person who is actively disrespecting you. Toxic individuals thrive in the gray areas of your hesitation. They rely on your politeness to sneak past your defenses. But when a boundary is swift, quiet, and entirely final, it proves that you are perfectly willing to make things incredibly uncomfortable to protect your own peace. Protecting your peace means internalizing that your time, your energy, and your presence are the most valuable assets you possess. You must stop handing out unlimited access to people who treat you like a disposable option or an emotional punching bag. When someone shows you they cannot respect the lines you have drawn, you do not give them a third, fourth, or fifth chance. You quietly and permanently cut the cord. Shh, you stop answering their calls. You remove your attention from their existence, and you let them fade completely into the background noise of the world. They will likely call you cold. They will call you ruthless. They will tell others that you have changed and that you are impossible to deal with. Let them. Their discomfort with your new boundaries is entirely their burden to carry. You're no longer in the business of managing other people's emotions at the expense of your own sanity. This is not about being cruel. It is about basic, uncompromising psychological hygiene. You owe absolutely nothing to those who threaten your equilibrium, and you owe everything to yourself. Tomorrow morning, the game continues, but you will no longer play the role of the predictable, eager-to-please pawn. You will step into the room as the observer. You will embrace the chilling stillness of non-reaction, the lethal weight of silence, and the unbreakable composure that forces others to reveal their hidden hands. You will stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, and you will sever access to anyone who disrespects your peace. You will become someone they cannot read, cannot provoke, and ultimately cannot conquer. Your silence will be your shield, and your absence will be your most devastating weapon. If you are ready to stop being a target and finally join the few who understand the unspoken laws of human nature, subscribe to the channel. The velvet dagger has been placed in your hands. Use it wisely.